Hello, everybody. Welcome to the NugQuest post-mortem. I am Drew. I did all of the programming and Unity work, also some music.
Very much on the music. And I am Eddie. I did pretty much all the visual arts for the game. So we kind of went balls deep on a game when we had no idea how to make one.
No idea.
But we had a lot of ambition, a lot of free time for being fucking 19 when we started it. We're now in our mid 20s.
Yep.
Commitment, kids.
It took 5 years, so 4 levels.
A fifth of our lives.
That's a long time.
Where we started with it, had no idea what we were doing. It started with, we're going to kind of take on Pac-Man and combine it with a really stupid idea of what if he was a stoner. And
Yeah, I mean, I remember vividly, I was learning C# for Unity and just messing around with the software because it's free. And I texted Eddie, hey, you have any ideas? I'd like to actually finish a project to practice programming, and boy, did he have an idea.
we'll call it, as another friend of ours always says, divine timing, where it was kind of meant to happen. The hours and hours of coding that this man put in behind the scenes is unreal. Like, you built the game from scratch. You didn't take
Yeah.
anything and modify it, really.
Mm-mm.
You got a few pieces of copy and pasted code from forums.
Well, I just watched YouTube tutorials, and that's where most of the time sink was just watching videos of other people showing me how to do it because I had no clue what I was doing. And if I could recommend doing anything when you're starting your first game, is have a small idea in your head, and then one by one you're like, okay, I want a character that moves around in first person. So you look up that tutorial and you do that one section, and then you learn how to make a loot chest, and then you have to look up every step of the way what you're planning on doing, because you can't just type in how to make a game
No.
and get the whole project in front of you. So
To that note, too, I was just thinking about this a little bit ago, was you're going to make a game, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be quick. And especially if you want something to be not just good, decent, somewhat presentable, even to your friends and family.
Yeah.
You got to put in a lot of time. There's no way around it.
And speaking of putting in a lot of time, I realized after this entire process of making this game that when you're building stuff, you should build it in a modular fashion so that once you build it, you can reuse it multiple times. Because one of the biggest mistakes I made with NugQuest is I built the first level because we just thought it was going to be one level, and then our scope creep made it 4 levels. That's after we cut other things. It was cut down to 4 levels, and I basically built the game 4 times because I didn't make things reusable.
I almost forgot we wanted to do more maps.
Oh yeah.
There was a full-fledged supermarket. There was one where we mentioned hey, what if we combine all the maps into one, where the enemies from all the maps would come out of portals, and it would be an interdimensional shit show.
I remember we wanted to do a Christmas map where we made Home Sweet Home with Santa Claus.
I don't remember that.
That would have been fun, but
it would have been.
maybe in the future we'll do an update. Yeah.
I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to tack on this game later on.
We'll probably throw an update in.
We won't.
We won't. We won't. We won't.
We won't. To the 2 of you watching that are looking forward to it. Do you remember the ghost pepper? Was supposed to be an enemy in it?
I do. I'm going to flash an image of that right now. There you go.
I can see it now. All right. The thing was a nightmare. Before we figured out what the enemies would be, they were just all going to be takes on food. Instead of, just your mom chasing you around the house, it was a satanically possessed giant green bell pepper. So what went wrong, starting with that? So as far as the art goes, really just taking the time to enjoy it. Literally anything in life that you enjoy and want to work on. You're going to have to put everything else aside so that it becomes the most enjoyable thing you occupy your time with. Make that your hobby. Make that your pastime.
What I would like to ask you is,
Yes.
out of all the art that you made, was there anything you would have done differently?
I want to highlight, we made a grizzly bear on Salty Pines, which was the second to last map you unlock in the game. So there's literally a bear that chases you instead of the usual people. And with Mr. Grizzly, the walking animation wasn't as smooth as I would have liked. And the pacing on it, with how the frames switch is fine.
Hmm.
It's just the fact that, like, I didn't take the time to, like, I hadn't worked with like a large scale pixelated being before, and thinking about like how that would look translated from real life into how it would actually look walking. So like they literally did it with Game of Thrones and the dragons when they were figuring out the flight path.
Hmm.
They would layer on like a slow motion video of a bat flying, and that's how they made these things look so damn realistic. With the bear, like same idea. Like I should have actually taken some time and set up a reference with like watching an actual grizzly bear walking or something.
That's a really good point.
Even though ours was such like a goofy, cartoonish type of thing, you can still take real life inspiration, and it's gonna make it that much more familiar and immersive.
I'd like to talk about what we learned from watching other people play our game, and especially me because I released the game at 11 p.m. I went to bed, and as soon as I woke up at like 8 a.m., there was a YouTube video of the entire playthrough with 100%.
I think you like mentioned something about. I didn't realize it was like a full playthrough by that time.
It took him like an hour and a half to beat.
That's beautiful.
I know.
I haven't been able to beat it.
My record's 13 minutes. It's on YouTube, actually. What I learned from that video was immediately he could not find the tutorial. He was like, oh, I saw that there was a tutorial. And I made sure I watched where he was looking, and it took him 11 minutes to find it. And I remember as before he opened the options, he said, what kind of freak would put the tutorial in an options menu? Something along those lines. And I was like, this guy, I guess. So the first update I ever made to that game was making the tutorial more accessible and visible. And another thing I learned was that there was a couple glitch spots on the first level that I patched.
You just said how you would plan everything so much better, and I was thinking we were fueled by the excitement of just jumping in on starting a game that we had no idea how to put together. And there was a lot of fuel into the fire for getting that done because of the lack of experience.
You know,
I would recommend, I'm just wondering if you would also recommend to people, like, if they've got a game and no idea how to go about it, start fucking up.
yeah, honestly,
Go all in.
no,
Look up
I think
questions
you're
along the
right
way.
with that because the only way that I figured out the right direction was just running into problems and kind of glancing off of them into the right direction. You know, I would like to say that organization is super important, but obviously it's not necessary because we got through the whole game years down the road. And I'd like to add that the whole game was lost on my old laptop that died for like 2 years.
We thought it was gone.
Yeah. So once we recovered that and I finished college, it was going right to Steam.
It probably would have gotten dragged out for another 5 years if it was just one of us or the other. If you just did this on your own. Because there's no way I was ever going to pick up coding. We'll be honest.
I probably could have done art, but nowhere near to the level that you did.
You're slightly artistic.
Yeah, a little bit.
Anyway, all I was gonna say was like, don't go it alone. If you've got some like off the wall idea that you have the means of doing it on your own and somehow just have this unbridled ambition and time to buckle down to it and go for it, like sure, go buck wild. But I think it's gonna help a lot more to actually have a friend along the ride with you.
I have to say, there was a lot of times where I thought the game would never be finished. I thought it would never cross the finish line. And not only did I not want to disappoint myself, but I didn't want to disappoint Eddie, who put all the time into the artwork. And thinking about that is kind of what helped me follow through with the rest of the game. The first game you make is always going to be the hardest because you're paving the pathway. You have no idea where you're going. But once you do it once, you know the path and you just walk that way. You know what I mean?
You texted me like it's published, and I was like,
Yeah.
huh?
It was a surreal feeling seeing the number of downloads go up and see people's reaction. And my neighbor actually beat it in like 40 minutes. He messaged me. He's like, oh, great game, man. I'm like, oh, thanks. All right, so you wanted to touch on scope creep?
Yeah, we had way too many ideas. Far too many,
Oh, yeah.
especially for a first game. Gotta trim the fat off. But also, would you say it's better to have too much than not enough to work with?
Absolutely. If you stack up just a bunch of ideas, you can pick which ones are actually quality and keep those. But if you don't have enough content, you can't really stretch it with quality's sake.
Keep piling things on, but be realistic with yourself about how much is actually going to make it into the final cut. For a first game, keep it obtainable.
One thing that I wish I did was make a quick 1-page game design document. And what that
What is
is
this?
you basically would just plan out your game in like a short description, what it's like. For us, our short description would be Pac-Man but stoner. Just keep it simple, and then below that you kind of list the main mechanics and the feeling that you want the game to give you. And that would really help with scope creep because it gives you some sort of boundary to stay in so that you can't travel too far from your main goal.
All and said and done, I wouldn't trade the experience. It was awesome. We got something out there. It was dope.
I gotta say, my favorite part of building the game is by far the hiding spots because there was a little bit of movie
So
magic
much fun.
involved. Not only was it fun for you to make all the art, like the washing machine,
It was the first one I thought of. Was him and
that gets some of the best reactions is that washing machine and the lamp. I watched one of the YouTube videos and the guy runs up to the lamp and he's like, "Is this gonna do what I think it's gonna do?" And he goes, he's like, "Exactly what I thought." And you know it's intuitive when they guess what's going to happen. I liked it so much because the player character would basically go up next to this object and would turn invisible as soon as the new art popped up. So there'd be a puff of smoke and it would just shut off and turn on.
My favorite part got to be like the characters we actually came up with.
Oh, yeah.
We decided that we were going to put in these other characters. We started throwing in the dad, like making these goofy ass personas that would be your enemies. It's like they aren't like your typical big bad scary monster big boss. As far as the characters go, we got to take the liberty of like what are these goofy ass antagonists that can come into the mix? Like who would you be afraid of? Hi. And the answers were obvious.
Mom and dad.
Yes, mom, dad, a police officer, a
Park rangers.
yeah, pissed off convenience store owner, and of course, a literal bear. And all said and done, we had a riot with it. Like, what do you want to do differently on the next game? What are you keeping in mind bringing to the table at the forefront? Like we've talked about a lot today. What do you think the most important takeaway is from it all?
Well, now that I'm moving from a game that was free to a game that I'd like to make some money from, I'm focusing more on efficiency and marketing. So this video is a step in the right direction for building an audience. Hey there. If you made it to this point in the video, that means you watched the whole thing. So I want to say thank you. I hope you learned something, or at the very least, you were entertained on your drive home from work. It was a longer one this time, so let me know how you guys feel about that. And otherwise, have a great night. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you next time.